My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
The sound of praise for your Sunday morning.
The only one who could ever teach me.
Introducing Reverend A.R. Bernard of the Christian Cultural Center.
Was the son of a preacher man.
And Rabbi Joseph Potasnik of Religion on the Line.
The only one who could ever teach me.
Now, on Talk Radio 77 WABC, here's the Rev and the Rabbi, where faith matters.
Good morning, I'm Rabbi Joseph Potasnik.
And I'm Reverend A.R. Bernard.
Reverend, I've learned there are 3 stages of life. There's young, there's middle age, and you're looking good.
Yeah, you're looking
And we're still in the middle age section. We haven't reached the you're looking good.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Somebody will say to you, I'm looking at you. You look the same today as you did 20 years ago. And I say, I look this old 20 years ago. Right? So this past week, we commemorated September 11th, and that was 23 years ago, 2001. And now we're seeing there are more people who are dying of related illnesses than died on September 11th. At 343 on September 11th, we're now, I think, 370 in terms of related illnesses.
Wait, 370 people have
and still others are
died
or ill. Yeah.
As a result of 9/11. Were these first responders primarily?
First responders, people who were there. I know I participated in a lot of those commemorations. We're naming streets after people like that. But I was at the site, Ground Zero, and to see families touching, because some of their loved ones are not buried in cemeteries. They couldn't.
That's right.
And they're just touching, putting their hands on the name, kissing their fingers as after they do that. You see children talking who never met their parent, never met a parent because the person died.
That's part of being human. We want to stay connected with those that we love. We build monuments to them. The whole idea of a cemetery and gravestones and mausoleums, etc. It's unique to the human experience. We want to stay in touch. And I think part of that is a mystery. We don't know for sure what happens after death, especially wondering why someone may have lost their life in such a horrific way as many who died, around 9/11. Yeah, that stays with us.
One of the things I've learned, and you know very well, is there are times when you meet people who have lost loved ones and you don't know what to say. And I always tell members of the clergy that I know, you don't have to think of what you have to say. You have to think of you're there. Hug them, hold them, show them that you care. It's not the words often that matter. It's the presence that matters, the theology of presence.
The theology of presence that you and I often speak about. And have you ever had a situation where you felt compelled to try to explain God's role in, what took place? Because they ask you, why would God let this happen to my child or to my dad or to my mom? Have you been in a situation like that?
One of the first funerals I ever had was a friend of mine. And I remember the mother came over to me and she knew me. She said, Joe, I just want to ask you a question. God gave my son such wisdom, such warmth. Why didn't he give him more years? And I said to her, I wish I could give you an answer that may have meaning for you, but let me tell you what I simply say. I don't understand why. I know that the heavens are higher than the earth. And I'd like to think there is some, divine plan. But even when you say that, some will say, why does God want a 4-year-old child?
Right. Yeah.
I think we have every right and a responsibility say, I don't know. Because the stories are not comforting to some.
And when we try to force some theological expression that tries to satisfy their longing to know, to understand what essentially we have to accept as mystery, that can be tough. I know some clergy who feel that they've got to somehow craft a eulogy or a sermon, to explain it. And I'm careful with that.
You often hear people will say, God was with me, that's why I survived. When I hear that, I don't want to in any way insult them, but I say, and the other people who died.
What about the people that perished?
Yeah, God was not with them.
Yeah.
So that, selective, that choice of you and not them.
I think we have to be careful how we try to incorporate God into our daily experiences, because sometimes it works, but sometimes it doesn't. I mean, suppose there are believers on both teams.
It's very hard. I have every right to admit that I have limitations, and I just don't have answers to everything, but I value the question.
I had a young 12-year-old congregant, part of a family, members of our congregation. He asked me one day, he said, Pastor, what do you love most about Christianity or Christian faith? And I immediately responded, mystery.
Yeah.
I said, that's what I love most. We don't have all the answers. We can leave ourselves open to wonder and to not understand, but to continue to grow.
We say that when the Messiah arrives
comes again.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That Messiah will answer questions that we couldn't answer when we were here during our time. We have some very interesting guests today.
Yeah.
We have two members of NYPD. We have Deputy Commissioner of Community Affairs, Mark Stewart, and we have Deputy Chief Richard Taylor. And they really represent the department very well, and I think there'll be a very important interview.
Yeah, so stay tuned for more of this great conversation with the Rev and the Rabbi right here on 77 WABC. We'll be right back.
Where faith matters. The Rev and the Rabbi. Talk Radio 77 WABC.
Welcome back. I'm Rabbi Joseph Patasta.
And I'm Reverend A.R. Bernard.
Reverend, we're sitting here, and I'm surrounded by two members of NYPD. You're not.
So you don't say it right. You're surrounded by the police. I'm not.
You're not. You're in the clear.
Okay, I'm clear.
We're honored to have here Deputy Commissioner of Community Affairs Mark Stewart and Deputy Chief Richard Taylor. Thank you so much for being with us. It's a great honor to have you here. I've been privileged to know you. The Reverend has known you. And really, it's to see two people who have gone up the ranks and are so deserving of the position they hold is a great honor. So, anything new at the department? Anything
Yes.
going on?
That's a nice way to introduce the conversation.
Well, obviously, there's been a change, just a very recent change. So, I don't know how much you can address that, but I know the audience wants to hear something.
Yeah, first of all, I'd like to thank Commissioner Caban for his leadership and what he brought to the department last 2 years under his administration. We took 18,000 guns off the street, and crime is down. So my concerns is that he's okay, his family's okay, and that we're praying with him and making sure that he's okay, because he did a great job. That's important. You present a human side of things. Too often when things play out in the press, we forget that these are human beings with families. And so I appreciate you bringing that to the beginning of the conversation.
And, something appears in the press, and immediately we reach a conclusion without knowing all of the details.
Yeah.
People, there's the public opinion.
Public opinion.
Right?
Yeah,
and what actually transpired. An allegation has become the equivalent of a conviction in many cases.
Yeah. Well, that's why it's called the court of public opinion.
Exactly.
They have their own court, and they're making up their own minds. But this is not, new. I mean, departments like this, civil service departments, especially when it comes to police across the country, and we have the largest in the country, that has to be managed well. we go through times where things are shaken up. Things have to change, right? So change is good. It's not always pleasant to those who are negatively impacted by the change, but essentially, it does question how we're doing things and how we can do them better. We begin to reflect and rethink the culture, the systems, the structures. So I'm looking at it from a positive perspective.
Yes, I would say that the vision and the mission will always be the same.
Yeah.
We are here to protect the city. The police commissioner can leave, the chief department can leave. This police department will always be running 24/7.
Yeah. And that's important. Things continue regardless of what's happening.
And to speak specifically about the Community Affairs Bureau, we're very fortunate to have Commissioner Mark Stewart at the helm of Community Affairs. Commissioner Stewart has served over 40 years in law enforcement. Just incredible. Started as a police officer, did his 20 years. We know this is the common saying, 20 and out. Commissioner Stewart retired after 20 years of service as a police officer, retired as a second-grade detective. But he answered the call for public service a second time. He went to the Manhattan DA's office, where he supervised the Violent Crime Squad, overseeing and implementing strategies to prosecute the most horrendous perpetrators of the most horrific crimes. Commissioner Stewart oversaw the investigation and prosecution in many ways of the stories that we watched on TV, the stories that we read about in the papers. Commissioner Stewart did everything he can around the clock, 24/7, keep Manhattan safe. But what's so significant is that after about 17 years of that, Commissioner Stewart answered the call for public service a third time by coming back to the NYPD to serve as the Deputy Commissioner of Community Affairs. And we're very fortunate to have his leadership, his steady, intelligent hand, guiding us in community affairs. And yes, as you mentioned, Reverend Mayor Bernard and Rabbi Potasnik, tough time in the police department now, but with that steady, intelligent hand from Commissioner Stewart, especially from Community Affairs, that we are such a visible bureau. We're very, very fortunate to have him, with us, continuing the great work that we do as a police department.
Do you bring your PR person with you wherever you go, or is that part of the job? Let me say this,
and for those who don't know, Friday we had the resignation, effective Friday, the resignation of the current police commissioner Caban, and that's still going through a process.
I had a discussion with FDNY Commissioner Cassano. He said, "Look, we at FDNY, and the same thing is true of NYPD. It's a well-oiled machine.
Yeah.
The people on the job know what they have to do. So there are changes that are made in different departments, but the department runs because of all the years of building and rebuilding." Let's talk about something that impacts the Jewish community. Here we are approaching the High Holy Days. And usually it's a time of anticipation of, going to synagogue and praying. But there's an added component, and that is there's a fear out there. We've seen a suspect apprehended, Canadian border, who was looking to attack an Orthodox synagogue, major Orthodox synagogue in New York City. We've had other attacks on other synagogues around the country, Pittsburgh and Poway. What can you say to the Jewish people who are saying, we're worried? We want to go to synagogue, and we will go, but we're a bit afraid?
Well, here's what we say. We have the best police department in the world. We work with different agencies, DEA, ATF, counterterrorism. Luckily, we were able to know about this individual before he came into the country. And that just goes with good planning, good police work, and the efforts of all agencies. We have to really sit back and let the community know that they're a part of this too. If you see something, you say something. We have our synagogues will be covered 24/7. We will have our police officers out there, our community affairs officers. And it's just one goal, that you can leave your house, go to your house of worship, and feel safe. Now, what happens, we have crime is down, but the perception is up. So how do we get the perception down?
That's good, yeah.
We just have to keep showing up, be visual and vigilant, and everybody does. We live in a time that You have people out there just committing violent acts randomly. How can you stop that? So our job is to make sure a heavy presence is out there and make sure that you feel safe.
Let me just say thank you. The Jewish community every year comes to the briefing that you present so well, and we come with gratitude because every precinct has a relationship with the local houses of worship. And every house of worship is told to have a security plan so that you know what to look at, what to do, but that couldn't be done without NYPD. So just know it doesn't go unnoticed or unappreciated.
So let me weigh in. You talked about the Jewish community. Let me talk about the community of color. Commissioner Stewart, you're a person of color, and that can put you in a tension, being sensitive to what goes on in communities of color and the tension between law enforcement, historic tension between law enforcement and communities of color. You understand and appreciate, as I do, the need for moral order, and yet the sensitivity to inequities in our society on the side of social justice issues. And right now, our politics have those on opposite sides when they should be working together. What has been your experience in that tension?
I noticed that we have to be transparent in our communities. We know in the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, our black communities weren't treated fairly. Mm-hmm. And they don't want to hear sorry. They want to hear an acknowledgement that this happened. So it's up to us now, especially myself in this position, to make sure when I speak to our communities and they understand that this is a new police department. And it's not that hard to have that relationship. We just have to keep showing up. Like I've been married to my wife for 33 years, and we're going to go through ups and downs. I'm sure I wasn't her first pick, but but I can say this. I kept showing up to show her that I care about her. And I use that basis in our communities too. And we have to get our young kids early because they're running into so much of with the social media and Instagram that these kids don't have any social skills. So what happened, we tried to bring out programs in our communities. We have an aviation program that we started in Brooklyn, 127 Pennsylvania. Now you have to picture this. We have 20 kids of color. Our aviation unit in the police department is teaching them aviation. It's a 6-week course, 2 days a week. Our harbor unit in the police department, we're going to Brooklyn and to these neighborhoods to show them about safety, water safety, and how we do rescue missions. We even have a college tour that we started in our communities. We started with SUNY and CUNY. We take kids through DOE, and we take them to colleges. And you're going to see the expressions on these kids' face when they get off that bus. What was missing there? Opportunity and transportation. We have sports, but we can't dribble our way out of problems. Not all kids play sports. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So we have to diversify what we do in the community and reach out to them. And you're surprised, a lot of black parents and mothers and single mothers, they say, Commissioner, thank you. But all this basketball, our kids do more than just basketball. We do basketball and we do other sports, but we have to diversify with our kids because we're going to lose them. When you go to school and you see a new kids with a pair of new Jordans on and you don't have them, then how are you going to get the money to buy them? Yeah. But we have to set them straight. And I'm talking about 10 years old. Wow. We have to get them early. Yeah. Now, if you ever go to NYCHA, and I saw one time a 10-year-old little girl, had her 6-year-old sibling and walking her to school. And my thing is, where are the parents now? What are the parents doing? Yeah. We lost it somewhere where the parents in our black communities, we just have to be more present and they have to see us. And these kids want that mentorship that we give them. So when I've been invited to a school or to a community to talk to kids, I tell them, I said, listen, I come from Lafayette Garden Projects. We call it NYCHA now. I was born in 456 DeKalb Avenue, apartment 7H. A skinny black kid with big ears, and now I'm the deputy commissioner of the largest police department in the world. And I have to show them it's not where you start, it's where you finish. But it comes with hard work. Kids nowadays, they want things now. It's work you have to put into it. You have to have goals. You have to have a commitment. And this is the we're trying to project to these young kids. You got to have goals and commitments.
Yeah, that's important. I appreciate your answer because there's a different relationship historically between the Jewish community and the law and law enforcement than the black community and the law and law enforcement. So what you're doing is changing that, not just enforcing the law, but changing the relationship with the law that our communities have with law enforcement. I think that's so important. Has the relationship changed as you've seen in the communities?
Yes, it definitely has. I come into what I say, we just don't arrest. We have to invest. We have to invest our time into these communities to show our communities that we're there for them. And it's not hard. It's just showing up and being there. When I walk into a community and I see the mothers or the clergy, hey, how you doing, hey, Commissioner Stewart? That makes me feel good, and that makes them feel safe too. So it's very important that we have these conversations. We have to have a conversation. We have to have a dialogue in our communities, and that's what's missing. And I urge people, go to your precinct, your commanding officer, and go meet him or her. They're there to help you. I go to the meetings with the mayor or our town halls, and they come up with all of these complaints and, oh, this police, you could have settled this with the commanding officer.
Yeah.
Go bring a cup of coffee. Go say hello to him. We have to have these meetings in every precinct in our communities. There could be something going on in your building, out in the street. You're the eyes and ears. Tell us. We will fix it that day. The mayor goes to the town halls. Oh, this homeless people sleeping on my block. Do we have to wait till the mayor got there to take care of the problem? Go to the precinct. That's what we're there for, of course.
Right.
Interesting. First, just for your protection, you said earlier that you were not the first pick for your wife. Please also add on to that she was the first pick for you.
Yes.
All right, so let's just keep
but
that.
She ended up with him.
Yeah,
that's
right.
That's a big
she
take.
settled, but he got the prize. We're sitting here, Reverend. We have African American Deputy Commissioner of Community Affairs. We have an Orthodox Jewish Deputy Chief. And we have diversity, obviously. But it's not just diversity for the sake of diversity. It's diversity that's predicated on ability. It's diversity that's predicated on merit. When you go to recruit, you also said there's intense training, there's an educational process. And I think it's important for people to know, because we throw this word diversity around today and people think, they're just hiring you because you fit a certain configuration. But was it Congressman Badillo? When he was
Herman Badillo,
right?
yeah.
Herman Badillo, when he was with CUNY, he said, we got to have standards. We just can't admit people because they look a certain way or sound a certain way. Standards are important. And obviously, you don't compromise on standards.
Yes, exactly.
Right. I'll tell you, like I mentioned about Commissioner Stewart's track record, there's certainly the talent, like you're saying, right, Potasnik. And you two, the dynamic duo of radio, Renee or Bernard, Rabbi Potasnik, like you said.
The other order when
right to left.
Well, the Jewish right, when you read Hebrew, it's left to right, it's left to right, left to right. But if you think about it, you two are here together as well, like myself and Commissioner Stewart, but you two are here not because of the diversity as much as for your talents, for your experience, for your knowledge, for your reputations, to what you bring to the table, your insights to things, your outlooks to things, the way that you present issues, and your viewership, your listenership, your people that look up to you, that admire you, that wait for the next program that you do. They're doing it not based upon diversity as much as they're doing it based upon yourselves, what's inside, your heart and soul as to what you're doing every day. It's incredible.
Yeah, so we talk about talent on the police department and diversity. is very important. I came on the job in 1984. I didn't see too many people of looks like me that was in these positions.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to really sit back. My father was a police officer too, and he was a detective. So that's what I wanted to be, a detective. Being in this role now, I feel a responsibility to let these young officers know, if you want to make change, you have to be in my position. So we talk about diversity. Diversity is great. Can you imagine walking into an Asian neighborhood and they see 2-3 Asian cops and they speak the same language? They feel more at ease. They feel more comfortable. So that's what diversity kicks in on the police department. We go to the Muslim community. They feel more comfortable. And then what happens? Then they bring you in. If I go to a Jewish community and Chief Taylor's there and he brings me, first person to communicate is Chief Taylor. Oh, this is Commissioner Stewart. So diversity is very important department in our department.
But that's diversity not as quota.
Yes.
It's as relationship building for the sake of the community to make those connections. And I think that's an important distinction.
Yes, yes.
I was talking with Rabbi Michael Miller the other day. He was struck by an e-bike and leg was broken. He had all kinds of surgery and now it's physical therapy. And there is a certain anger out there because of what bikers do in violation of the law on the synagogue, going on the streets, going through lights. And why do you think it? And I'm not blaming you, but why is it so difficult to get legislation through so these people are held accountable?
So year to date, we took over 50,000 motorbikes off the street. Now, we can look at it two ways. Our job, if they're illegal, we're going to take the bikes. Now, what happens on COVID, let's remember in COVID that people were doing Grubhub, they were ordering Uber, and they got more popular. So now all of these bikes started coming out. Now COVID's over, everybody's still transporting, their Uber and Grubhubs. But we take bikes off the street, but they keep bringing them back. So our thing is this: let's talk to the store owners, which we set up a program in the community affairs, and let's educate these the migrants about traffic rules. Because a lot of them, if you go to different countries like Venezuela, they ride the bikes. There's no traffic rules, so we have to educate them too. I'm not saying that'll help us out, but they're just riding these bikes and they're riding them reckless. And that's our main concern, that if we find out about it, we're going to take care of it.
You speak of bikes. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Rabbi.
Shoplifters.
Yeah.
I mean, you see it. You see people walking out with bags, and security in these stores, they don't want to they're told, don't put your lives at risk for the sake of some goods that are taken. On the other hand, people are saying, I'm not going to shop anymore because everything is locked up.
We can talk about retail theft now. There's over 7,600 people that were locked up for the same crime and let out. Every agency has to be in sync when it comes to retail theft.
Mm-hmm.
We're the police department. If you commit a crime, we're going to arrest you. This is the problem, is that these people go in and they come out.
It's a revolving door. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And when and we're talking about 7,600 people that's committing the same crimes. Sometimes these guys are home before the cops even finish the paperwork.
Wow. And that's on the policy side.
Yes.
Yeah.
I know it's interesting with the bail reform, like Commissioner Stewart saying about the bail reform package. When the bail reform package was passed by the state legislature years ago, it also included those who are accused of hate crimes. That means that if a person was arrested for a hate crime, a judge would have no discretion other than just to allow that person to be immediately released with no possible bail hearing for a hate crime charge. Thanks to great work, the mayor himself, police department, the mayor actually did something that no one else did before. He had the state legislature practically admit a mistake and roll back the bail reform to now put back that hate crime component, that if someone's arrested and there's a charge for a hate crime, a judge now in New York State has discretion once again to possibly keep them in our custody for a bail hearing, for bail. And that's something significant. That's the work that the mayor's doing, the police department's doing together. And that's what we need to do. We need to get back that sentiment that there are consequences to crime.
I want to circle back to the bikes, mopeds, and this whole idea of crimes with machetes on mopeds. That's imported from another country. That's not something that has been common to our experience here on the streets, but it's happening now. Is it prevalent, or is that something that's still minor but happening?
It's minor. We get these cases, and we call them random cases. These people, bad people, they get the opportunity, they're going to commit a crime. But it's not something that's high that's going on in our communities.
Okay.
But it does happen.
You know why? Because we hear about that, and all of a sudden we see en masse guys on mopeds with machetes invading neighborhoods. So things are blown up out of proportion.
But you see, this is where I get back to. When I talk about crime is down and we talk about perception is up.
Yeah.
You know, if you look at the transit, you know, we have 4.5 million people that ride the subways. You know, there's only 5 crimes a day, which is 5 is too many, but there's only 5 crimes a day.
So let me ask you about demonstrations. You have demonstrations, and some of them are shouting the most vile things at police. How are you able to endure that kind of insulting language when it's in your face and you have to maintain composure? That's part of involved training, I guess. I mean, I couldn't do it.
Being professional.
Yeah.
And those are standards that we go by. Professionalism.
And that's important because I happen to serve with Commissioner Yolanda Jimenez under Howard Safer when CPR was put in place. That whole idea on the side of the police vehicle, courtesy, professionalism, and respect. And I think it was so important to bring that as an idea to be practiced by law enforcement, seeing themselves as professionals, not just cops that are enforcing the law, but as a professional.
I think what I'm learning from these two gentlemen is that there's a communal responsibility. Yeah, we have to, of course, depend on police, but we have a responsibility to demand more in terms of judges, in terms of legislation. It just can't be. People point a finger at the cops and say, why aren't you doing more? So wait a minute, we arrested these people. The rest is up to others. And I think, therefore, the community has to have a loud voice and say to the district attorneys and everyone else, let's work together. Otherwise, you're arresting, people say we're arresting in vain.
But there's a disconnect because you have elected officials who are pushing these things that put the police officers in a tough situation to do their job and gives a lot of frustration. But it doesn't necessarily reflect the desires of the communities that these electeds
Not to mention defund police. Where many often, minority communities say, what do you mean defund police? We want more police in our neighborhoods.
Yes. And you know what? I don't want to talk about other agencies, but I will tell you this. We're the police department. You commit a crime, you're going to get arrested.
Okay. All right.
And a moment of silence.
No. So I'm curious to know, when you were a little bit younger, and you said to your parents, I want to be a policeman. I know if I told my mom that I wanted to be a policeman, she would have a very serious talk. My dad would have a come to Moses moment with me, as we would say. What do you mean?
That's Old Testament.
Yeah, you're not going to medical school. You're not being a doctor.
Okay.
What was the reaction of folks, and what was the reason you went into this?
So, like I said before, my father was a police officer. And I remember when I was a kid, 8, 10 years old, his partners used to come to the house, play cards, have conversations. And they would talk about their stories, what they were doing on the job. And I was so excited and so thrilled to like to hear the stories. Maybe there were some stories I shouldn't have heard, but the majority of the time, it was stories that they were talking about. So I think when I was 10 years old, I knew I wanted to become a police officer and help people out. And it's still the same, being in law enforcement now for 40 years and how the community was in the 80s to where it is now. It's the evolution of our society, and you have to make the change. You have to be willing to have open eyes. Like now, guys that came on the job with in the 80s, oh, if I was there, that wouldn't happen. We would do it. No, you wouldn't. No, you wouldn't. And stop telling these young cops what you would have done. Because it's a new job now. You just can't do it,
But there are young individuals who are looking into law enforcement. It's not like the turnoff that you may think. Things are changing. I have a grandson. He's graduating from Farmingdale in January with his bachelor in criminal justice, and he's excited about going into law enforcement full force as a career. And he shares that with some of his friends. His father, our firstborn son, passed back in 2015, so we're raising 3 boys. But I'm so proud of how he looks at life and how he's gone through this process of understanding the need for individuals like him to get involved. And he says, Pop, I want to get involved. I want to make a difference and not just curse the darkness, but be light in that darkness. And he's not alone. There are young people who are thinking that way.
Yes, absolutely. And I know I was on the show a while back. I know Rabbi Ptasznik, I asked you the same question. What I was asked when I was becoming a cop, some people may have said to me, what's a nice Jewish boy like you looking to become a police officer? If I know Rabbi Ptasznik, I know they said when you were young, they said, what's a nice Jewish boy like you looking to become a rabbi? But yeah, it's the role models that we've had and those that we acknowledge that brought us to where we are today. And we always have appreciation for that.
What changes have taken place in the Department of Community Affairs that you've seen over the years towards building relationships with community?
It's being honest, being transparent, and again, always showing up. They want to see your face. I'm community affairs. I work 12, 13 hours a day. And when somebody asks me to come speak to the kids or the community, that's my job. It's my job to tell my story to them, to let them know, I know what you're going through. And it's my job to come back to the police department and let them know any changes that we need to make. And I can see now we're making a lot of strides. People are more receptive to us. And I tell them, I get my hair cut where you get your hair cut. I shop at Costco just like you shop. We are the same, but we have a blue uniform. But we are the same. And we have to, community is so important in our police department now. And I tell the young cops that they come out, I said, listen, when you go on a beat, you go into all these stores and meet them because God forbid something happens. These are the people who's going to come out and help you and save you. When I came on in 84, oh, don't do that. They mess with us. It's us against them. Yes, that's so
wrong
false.
attitude. Yeah.
So false. So false.
Yeah. I'm just curious. We're talking about relationships. Here we have 2 people coming from different backgrounds, African-American heritage, Jewish heritage. What have you learned about one another?
You go first, Rich. But we'll keep Rich only 2 minutes.
I know what he eats is a little more expensive than what you order on the menu. That I know.
One thing, seeing Commissioner Stewart, not just professionally, but with his family, he always speaks about his mother. His mother lives in Queens, where he grew up. And he always says, I got to go check on my mother. Got to make sure my mother is good. That family, Commissioner Stewart has 2 girls, 2 daughters, and a granddaughter. It's a girl dad. I have 5 girls. I'm also a girl dad, no sons. I saw that we have some differences. We have some differences the way we've grown up, but I also learned we're so much alike. We have so much in common, and we have to see each other more as a city. But it starts here, is what we're doing here today. And I've been so fortunate in the police department to have the leaders that I've had, especially Commissioner Stewart, where I've grown so much, that mentorship, that leadership, that I personally appreciate myself. And that spreads, like Commissioner Stewart said, speaking to kids, the next generation, my positivity spreads to those people. And they say courtesy is contagious. If you hold the door for someone, today, most likely they'll remember that, and they'll hold the door for someone else later that day or tomorrow. Courtesy is contagious. And the way that we operate as a police department, the way we're operating together, even right here, right now, I believe in the listenership that you have going on. the Rev and The Rabbi, it's something that keeps on spreading around the city, and that's our job, to bring that positivity, that spirituality, so much that's for some reason lost, that we're getting back, and we're doing that right here, right now. I'm just so happy to hold the position I have and be a part of that in a small way.
So with you, Commissioner Taylor, it's obvious, the role that faith plays in your life, because it's something that's part of your visible expression. But guys like us, they don't know until they see how we do things. What role
faith plays a role in your life, doesn't it?
Well, of course, absolutely.
Sure.
That's what I'm saying. You have to ask me. But for you, Commissioner, what role does faith play in your life?
Faith, I'm a very spiritual person. About 10 years ago, I probably shouldn't even have been here. And I am more spiritual. I do believe that I'm here because of a reason. Faith is very important to me. It's the whole concept. I look at life different now. And not before I got sick, but I just feel that things happen for a reason. Nothing is a coincidence. And why I'm here, because God gave me a blessing. But I also realized that with that blessing comes a responsibility. Yeah. And with that blessing is not for me, it's for me to bless others around me. I became more humble, more understanding, more compassionate. And it's important that I spread what I've learned through my faith to others. And it shows, and it tells. When you come into my office, I want people to come into work happy. I want people to come in and understand commissioner's a title. When the good Lord calls me, he's not going to ask me, was I a commissioner? He's going to ask me, what did I do to make this world better?
Yeah.
I want to just say this, having both of you here is very meaningful. We have a Torah portion that says you should appoint judges. The name of the portion is judges. But after the word judges, it says officers, police officers. The police officers are held in such high esteem biblically because they're the protectors of community as well as judges. To be in your presence, to know who you are. We could be going through the most difficult time, and I know I get a call from, Chief Taylor. I talked to Commissioner Stewart, and again, it's like, yeah, this is tough, but it's going to get better. The word better is part of your everyday vocabulary, and we're just very fortunate to be the beneficiaries of that positive spirit. Thank you.
And look, let me just say that we don't deny the fact that there are bad actors in the police department, but we should not paint the whole department with a broad stroke brush because of what a handful of individuals do to bring a bad name to it.
That applies to every profession. We, the clergy,
are
not exempt.
Wait, no. Clergy? That's a whole other show. Right? You know that.
No, but these two represent the best, and you bless us in all you do and all that you are. Thanks for being with us.
And there's no way that Commissioner Stewart's wife had anyone better than Mark Stewart, first round draft pick. My wife, I got to ask her. I'm doing the best I can.
Nah, he was a doctor, Rich.
Chief Taylor, I take it you like Commissioner Stewart.
You think so?
You got to mention it once in a while.
Well, that joke at an older Jewish mother, her son gets elected president of the United States. They're at the Capitol. Her son about to be sworn in as president, and she's sitting in the front row, and she starts talking to all her friends, says, you know my son? They said, yeah, he's about to be sworn in. She goes, no, not that one. My other son, the doctor.
That's the way it works?
Yeah.
Gentlemen, it's been great having you on the show,
Thank you
on
so
the program.
much.
Yeah. And stay tuned for more of the Rev and the Rabbi. We'll be right back right here on 77 WABC.
Reverend A.R. Bernard, Rabbi Joseph Potasnik, the Rev and the Rabbi. Talk Radio 77 WABC and the all-new WABCRadio.com.
Welcome back. I'm Rabbi Joseph Potasnik.
And I'm Reverend A.R. Bernard.
By the way, Reverend, this next week or 2 weeks, the United Nations General Assembly is in New York, which means you don't move.
A traffic nightmare.
This is why God created Idaho. This
Really?
is where you should have these meetings.
I
It's
thought it
just
was a
impossible
potato, really.
anymore. People have to get to work. They're delayed. It's really a hassle. And why not use Zoom? You can have these meetings on Zoom. Anyway, having, Commissioner Stewart and Chief Taylor, I thought to myself, sometimes in life you feel a certain way until you meet the person or the people. You have a preconceived notion. You read something in the paper. Oh, the police, they don't care. They're not engaged. You meet people who are as professional and have that personal warmth, and all of a sudden your whole, opinion changes drastically.
Yeah. And it's unfortunate that we tend to have our lenses colored by stereotypes, by preconceived notions and ideas, by things that we've heard about whole agencies. And as a result, we treat everyone based upon those negative impressions that have been put out there. But when you talk to someone, when you sit down and have a face-to-face and have conversation, it's a different thing. I've learned. Tell me your story. It's amazing how that changes a relationship and perceptions.
I mentioned to you during the week when we spoke that I went to school with someone named William Helmreich, who became a professor of sociology at CUNY. And he wrote a book entitled The Things They Say Behind Your Back. And it was all about stereotypes.
Yeah.
And of course, today they don't say them behind your back, they tell them to your face. But so many stereotypes are predicated on preconceived notions.
Yeah.
You meet one person who does something that is inappropriate, and now the whole group is...
Or the media plays up a situation where one person, and they become representative of the whole group. One of the things I have to commend NYPD, back in the 90s and early 2000s, working with the Community Affairs Division, we actually held a sensitivity training at Fordham University, and we had over about 470 officers there to talk about stereotypes. And I did a presentation, sociological perspective, to talk about how they all started and why they were applied. And it's interesting, Rabbi. The biggest problem had nothing to do with those interactions with community. It had to do with police officers being able to take off their uniform when they got home. That has been the biggest issue for them to deal with. And we would think that, all this other stuff that we hear playing out in the newspaper, on the media. But that's the biggest challenge for law enforcement, helping police officers navigate home and family, apart from the job.
My parents who, survived the Holocaust, when they would see police in Europe, it was different than they would see police here.
Yeah, that's right.
Because they were, in retail. And police would come in and just check on them. How are you doing? Can we help in any way? And I remember as a kid hearing my dad say, it's not what we had when we were in Europe. We didn't hear police asking us how we were. They said, you Jew, move, over here. Or let's.
You make an important point. Forgive me for interrupting you, but in our conversation, I pointed out the difference in relationship the Jewish community with law enforcement and the African-American or community of color with law enforcement. And there was a period of time where you had that negative, as a community, a negative relationship with law enforcement in Europe. That's interesting.
And
think
also,
about that.
We've come a long way. Faith communities, faith leaders' relationship with NYPD has become so special.
Yeah.
Where we're at the table. We're not just, spectators, and that's very important. We have the two guests we had today, I think, exemplify the best. Yeah. And you can look up to them and others and not take people for granted.
Yeah.
They risk their lives to rescue our lives. God bless them.
And we need models, right? That's what it's all about. Like you and I, the Rev
and the Rabbi.
Until next week, right here on 77 WABC, we wish you all the best. God bless.
Janine Pirro here for Colonial Metals Group. Colonial Metals Group helps Americans protect their future with the most trusted store of wealth in human history, physical gold and silver. If you're retiring or retired, go to colonialmetalsgroup.com/Pirro for your free Janine Pirro Colonial Metals Group Retirement Protection Kit, or call 800-965-8004. 800-965-8004 now to receive a free home safe and up to $7,500 in free silver.